There is a woman somewhere, right now, who cannot stop thinking about a specific man. He is not the most objectively attractive man she knows. He is not the most successful. He is not the most attentive. He has not told her she is beautiful every day. And yet, he occupies her mind at odd hours, during work, during conversations with friends, in the space between sleep and waking. She finds herself constructing scenarios, imagining what he would say, what he would do. She finds herself checking her phone for a message she isn't sure is coming. She finds herself doing the one thing she almost never does in romantic dynamics: pursuing. He did not engineer this by accident, but he also did not engineer it through manipulation. He engineered it by understanding, consciously or not, how the human brain is wired for pursuit, and by moving in a way that activated that wiring completely. This is not seduction. This is neuroscience. The next 20 minutes will explain with precision exactly how it works and what it requires of you. Stay with me. Welcome back to Silent Genius. My name is Daniel. If you watched episode 5, you now understand the invisible repellent, the neurochemical broadcast of desperation, and why it overrides every other positive signal a man can produce. Today, we go to the other side. Not what drives her away, what pulls her in and holds her there against her conscious attempts to move on. There is a psychological mechanism, discovered not in the study of romance, but in the study of learning, that when present in any reward delivery system, produces behavior that is functionally indistinguishable from addiction. B.F. Skinner discovered it with pigeons in a laboratory. It now explains why she cannot stop thinking about him. This episode is not a manual for manipulation. I want to be clear about that from the beginning. Understanding a mechanism is not the same as deploying it cynically. And in any case, as I will demonstrate, the authentic version of this mechanism cannot be manufactured. It can only be grown. But you need to understand it, because the man who does not understand it will spend his life doing the opposite, providing consistent, predictable warmth, and wondering why he generates comfort but not obsession. If you are new to this channel, subscribe now. The next 20 minutes contain some of the most important psychology in this series. In the 1950s, B.F. Skinner made a discovery that would eventually be used to design everything from slot machines to social media feeds. He was studying the behavior of pigeons in operant conditioning chambers. He offered food rewards in response to the pigeons pressing a lever. When the food arrived after every press, a fixed schedule, the pigeons pressed steadily and without urgency. When he removed the reward entirely, they stopped quickly. But when he varied the reward, so that sometimes the lever press produced food, sometimes it didn't, and the pattern was unpredictable, something remarkable happened. The pigeons pressed the lever compulsively, far more frequently than on the fixed schedule, and when the rewards were removed entirely, they continued pressing for an extended period, as if unable to accept that the reward was gone. Variable reward creates compulsive engagement. Fixed reward creates comfortable complacency. Skinner called this variable ratio reinforcement. It is the most powerful schedule of reinforcement in the psychology of learning. And it is operating in every dynamic where a woman finds herself genuinely, involuntarily obsessed with a man. When his warmth is consistent and predictable, when she knows exactly when his messages will come, exactly what energy he will bring, exactly how available he will be, the reward schedule is fixed. It is comfortable. It is reassuring. It produces the neurochemical profile of security. But security is not dopamine. And dopamine, not oxytocin, not serotonin, not the neurochemicals of comfort, is the engine of obsession. She is not addicted to his presence. She is addicted to the uncertainty of it. Variable reward creates dopamine release not at the moment of receiving the reward, but at the moment of anticipating it. The not knowing, the waiting, the wondering. Applied to romantic dynamics, the man whose warmth is unpredictable, not randomly, but organically, creates a dopamine cycle in her that predictable warmth structurally cannot. This is not a cruelty. It is chemistry. Here is the neuroscience behind the mechanism. Dopamine is the brain's primary reward anticipation neurotransmitter. It is commonly described as the pleasure chemical, but that is an imprecise description. Dopamine is not primarily released during pleasure. It is released during the anticipation of pleasure. Kent Berridge's landmark research at the University of Michigan drew a critical distinction between wanting and liking. The dopamine system, Berridge found, drives wanting, the compulsive motivation to pursue a reward. The liking, the actual pleasure of receiving it, is driven by opioid systems. What this means is profound. The thing that drives her to check her phone repeatedly, to replay her last interaction with him, to find him occupying her thoughts at unexpected moments, is not satisfaction. It is the anticipation of satisfaction. The wanting is stronger than the having. This is why completion kills obsession. When a man makes himself entirely available, answering immediately, providing consistent warmth, removing all uncertainty about his interest and his accessibility, he collapses the anticipation loop. The wanting is satisfied, and satisfied wanting ceases to drive behavior. This is why the man who does everything right, who is consistently attentive, reliably warm, transparently interested, often finds that the relationship slowly loses its charge. Not because he has done anything wrong in any moral sense, but because he has inadvertently removed the neurochemical mechanism that drives pursuit. He has given her comfort. He has given her certainty. He has given her everything except the one thing that keeps her dopamine system engaged: the not knowing. Let me give you two men, same woman, different outcomes. Man A, Daniel, 34. Consistent, warm, reliably attentive. He messages every morning. He responds within minutes. When she doesn't hear from him for a few hours, it is unusual enough to be noticeable. He is, by any conventional definition, a great communicator. He tells her he is interested, clearly, consistently. She likes Daniel. She enjoys his company. But she never finds herself checking her phone for him. She never lies awake constructing scenarios. She knows with perfect certainty what he will do next. And that certainty, comfortable as it is, has a ceiling. Man B, Marcus, also 34, equally interested, equally genuine. But Marcus is occupied. He responds when he responds, not strategically, but because he is genuinely absorbed in his life. His messages are infrequent but substantial. When he is present with her, he is fully present. When he is not, he is genuinely elsewhere. She cannot predict Marcus, not because he is inconsistent in character, he is entirely consistent in character, but because his availability is not calibrated to her expectation. She finds herself wondering what he is working on. She finds herself looking forward to his messages precisely because they are not guaranteed. Daniel provides comfort. Marcus creates dopamine. This is not a moral distinction. Marcus is not playing games. He is not withholding warmth as a tactic. He is simply a man who is genuinely occupied and whose engagement with her is genuine when it occurs, but never performs itself for her benefit. The difference in her neurochemical response to these two men is not a reflection of their character. It is a reflection of the reward schedule they have created. Daniel has given her fixed rewards. Marcus, inadvertently, has created variable ones. And her dopamine system does not care about intention.
In 1927,
Soviet psychologist Bluma Zygarnik documented an effect that would bear her name. Her observation: waiters in a restaurant had remarkably detailed memory of orders that had not yet been served, and almost immediately forgot those same orders after they were completed. The brain, Zygarnik found, allocates sustained cognitive resources to unresolved tasks. Completed tasks are filed and released. Incomplete tasks generate what psychologists call a persistent cognitive intrusion, an ongoing allocation of mental bandwidth, a loop that keeps running until resolution is reached. Applied to attraction, the man who provides closure, who resolves every interaction completely, who answers every question fully, who leaves no emotional thread hanging, is a man whose story gets filed. The man whose story remains unresolved, not through avoidance, but through genuine depth and layeredness, occupies her mind in a fundamentally different way. This is why the most memorable conversations often end slightly early, before the natural conclusion, before all the stories are told, before all the questions are answered, not because you are being coy, but because your life is genuinely larger than any single conversation can contain. The man who reveals everything immediately, who answers every question enthusiastically, who volunteers his full biography in the first 3 encounters, has resolved himself, filed himself. She has the complete picture, and the cognitive loop closes. The man who retains depth, not through artificial mystery, but through the genuine layeredness of a life richly and privately lived, keeps a thread of narrative open. And the open thread is the one she follows back. Stop. Think about this. Women describe their most intense attractions in remarkably consistent language. I can't explain it. I just can't stop thinking about him. He's not even my type, but I can't get him out of my head. Something about him. I don't know. I can't stop. The consistency of this language is not coincidence. It is the consistent verbal expression of a specific neurochemical state, the dopamine-driven wanting that Berridge's research maps so precisely. She cannot stop thinking about him because her dopamine system has not received resolution. The anticipation loop is still running. The Zygarnik loop is still open, and both loops feed the same neurochemical mechanism, the one that drives the compulsive return of attention. And the man who generated this state did not, in most cases, do so through deliberate strategy. He generated it by being genuinely engaged in his own world, by having something to return to, by never collapsing his full self into the pursuit. His mystery was not performed. It was the natural byproduct of a man who had more going on than she could fully see, who was more than any single conversation could contain, who was, at his core, genuinely interesting, not because he curated his presentation, but because he had actually built something interior worth discovering. You cannot manufacture mystery. You can only build a life deep enough to contain it. I need to address a conflation that causes significant confusion in this domain. There is a difference between the man who disappears strategically as a deliberate tactic while remaining emotionally invested, checking to see if absence produces the desired response, and the man who is simply genuinely occupied. The strategic disappearance is, in most cases, transparent. Why? Because the man performing it is still emotionally reactive to the outcome. He is still tracking, still hoping, still running the cortisol signature of the anxious man, even while performing the behavior of the occupied one. She detects this, not always consciously, but the cognitive dissonance between the unavailable behavior and the detectable emotional monitoring creates an incoherence she registers as something not quite right. The performed disappearance is just desperation wearing a disguise. The genuinely occupied man is different in kind. He is not tracking the outcome, he is not monitoring her response to his absence. He is simply not present because his life has legitimately claimed his attention. When he returns, naturally without theater, he brings the full energy of a man who has been somewhere interesting, who has done something worth doing, who has not been waiting. And she feels the difference, instantly. The second kind of disappearance creates pull. The first kind creates confusion, then, eventually, contempt. The instruction, then, is not disappear strategically. The instruction is build a life that legitimately claims your attention. The disappearances will be real, and real is the only currency that works. Scarcity is not the absence of presence, it is the careful proportion of it. The most compelling men are not absent men. They are periodically present men. Men whose presence, when it occurs, is fully felt, because it is not diluted by constant availability. Think about this through the lens of economics. Scarcity creates value. This is not an opinion. It is a principle as old as trade. The thing that is everywhere costs nothing. The thing that is rare costs everything. Emotional presence operates by the same mechanism. The man who is always available, always responsive, always warm, always there, has, inadvertently, made his presence cheap. Not through any fault of character, simply through excess of supply. Machiavelli's The Prince contains a relevant strategic principle that translates directly into this domain. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Machiavelli is describing the primacy of perception over reality in human assessment. What a man appears to be, in terms of availability and demand, carries as much weight as what he actually is. But the deeper application is this: the man who is genuinely in demand, who is occupied, pursued by others, engaged with a world of legitimate competing demands on his attention, will naturally, without calculation, produce the conditions of scarcity that Machiavelli identifies as strategically valuable. His scarcity is not a performance. It is the accurate reflection of a life that has genuine weight. And a life with genuine weight is, again, the only sustainable version of this. Ask any woman to describe her most intense romantic experiences. Almost universally, they will reach for the word complicated. Not in the sense of difficult or painful, though sometimes those are present too. In the sense of textured, multi-layered, not entirely predictable. A relationship that produced the full range of emotional experience, not merely its comfortable middle register. Psychologist Gary Wilson, in his research on dopamine dynamics, observed that the brain's reward system is most powerfully engaged by experiences that alternate between emotional valences, that move between anticipation and satisfaction, between warmth and uncertainty, between closeness and distance. This is the emotional rollercoaster principle, and it is not a design flaw in female psychology. It is simply the accurate description of what the dopamine system requires to remain engaged. The brain that is always warm goes numb. The brain that moves through temperature stays alive. The consistently warm, consistently available man gives her one temperature, and one temperature experience, however pleasant, eventually registers as flatness. The man who is deeply present when present and genuinely absent when absent, who can be warm and simultaneously holds something in reserve, who engages fully and then returns to his world, gives her temperature variation, emotional texture. And emotional texture is what she later describes as intensity. Note the important qualifier. The roller coaster that is healthy is the natural variation of a fully dimensional man engaged in a fully dimensional life. It is not manufactured emotional chaos. It is not hot and cold manipulation designed to destabilize. The line between authentic emotional texture and manipulation is this. Is the variation authentic? Does it come from the genuine rhythms of your life and engagement? Or is it performed for effect? Authentic variation equals intensity. Performed variation is a pattern she will eventually recognize and leave. I want to stop here and address something directly, because this episode contains knowledge that can be, and has been, used cynically, and I am not willing to deliver it without the framework that distinguishes its legitimate use from its abuse. The mechanisms we have described today are real. The dopamine loop is real. The Zeigarnik effect is real. The variable reward schedule is real. Their application to romantic attraction is well documented and consistent. A man who understands these mechanisms and deploys them deliberately, manufacturing unpredictability, creating calculated absence, engineering emotional texture as a tactic, is using this knowledge as a weapon. And weapons turned on people who have not consented to being in a war are morally indefensible. The purpose of this episode is not to give you a formula for manufacturing obsession in women you do not genuinely care about. If that is what you are seeking, this is the wrong channel. The purpose is this: to help you understand why the patterns of the high-value man, the patterns that emerge naturally from a life of genuine depth, genuine occupation, and genuine self-sufficiency, produce the effects they produce. Because when you understand the mechanism, you stop accidentally dismantling it. You stop over-explaining and over-texting out of well-meaning earnestness. You stop collapsing your world into hers out of misguided devotion. You build the life. You live it genuinely, and the mechanisms take care of themselves. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. The man who understands these dynamics and lives by them will, to outside observers, appear to be doing nothing. And that is precisely the point. The most powerful version of this is invisible. The goal is not to seem high value, it is to be it. The mechanisms are the natural consequence.
There is a version of mystery that is dishonesty.
The man who invents a complicated backstory, who is vague about his life for strategic effect, who withholds basic information to seem more layered than he is. This is not mystery, this is performance, and it collapses the moment genuine intimacy is possible, because there is nothing behind the facade. Genuine mystery is not the absence of transparency, it is the presence of depth. A man can be entirely honest and still be deeply mysterious, because the thing that makes him interesting is not what he conceals. It is what he is, his interiority, his convictions, his peculiar way of seeing the world, the private library of thought and experience that no single conversation will ever fully exhaust. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, describes the seductive quality of the person who seems to contain more than is visible. There is always a sense that you are getting only a part of their personality. They have something that is kept from you. Greene is not describing evasion. He is describing the natural quality of a man who has cultivated an interior life so rich that it cannot be fully delivered in any given interaction. The woman who finds a man genuinely mysterious is not responding to what he refuses to tell her. She is responding to the sense, visceral, not intellectual, that there is more to him than she has yet reached. You cannot produce this by withholding information. You can only produce it by actually being more studied, more disciplined, more invested in the development of your own inner world. The mystery follows from the depth, not the other way around. Machiavelli articulates this principle in its political form in The Prince, but its application is universal. Law 34 in Robert Greene's codification of Machiavellian principles. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. And more directly, from the Machiavellian tradition, the powerful man does not go to others. Others come to him. This is not arrogance. It is the accurate description of how the dynamics of pursuit operate. The man who pursues, who moves toward, who seeks access, who positions himself in terms of her approval, establishes a power architecture in which she is the seat of value and he is the aspirant. The man who holds his position, who is available when present but does not come running, who expresses interest without orbiting, establishes the inverse architecture. He who pursues places himself below. He who holds his ground places himself level or above. Applied in the clearest possible terms, the man who is interesting enough, occupied enough, and fundamentally self-sufficient enough to not need to pursue creates the conditions for being pursued. Not every time, not without genuine value to back it, but as a consistent pattern, the man who can wait, who can hold his center, who can be engaged without being available, is the man around whom the dynamics of pursuit naturally reverse. This is what women describe when they say, "I don't know why, but I was the one who ended up chasing him." He did not make her chase him. He simply stopped chasing her, and the vacuum created by his authentic self-sufficiency pulled her naturally toward him. Stop. Read that again. He stopped chasing, and the vacuum pulled her in.
Here is a test.
And I want you to apply it ruthlessly. Think about the last person you were interested in, romantically or otherwise, and ask yourself, was your engagement with them coming from fullness or from emptiness? Were you bringing something to that dynamic? Energy, ideas, presence, substance? Or were you needing something from it? Validation, reassurance, the sense that someone saw your value. One of those is desire, one is need. One generates pull, one generates the invisible repellent we addressed in episode 5. The man who cannot answer this honestly has work to do. And the work is not on the interaction, it is on the interior. If this episode gave you something to think about, and I believe it did, then like this video. Subscribe to SilentGenius. Every Tuesday and Friday, a word about what comes next. Episode 7 is titled, I Need Space. What she's really telling you. You now understand the pull mechanism. You understand why the dopamine loop creates obsession and how the variable reward schedule drives compulsive pursuit. You understand the Zeigarnik effect, the ethics of this knowledge, and how genuine mystery, not performed, is the byproduct of depth. But here is what none of that prepares most men for. The moment when she withdraws. Not because she has lost interest necessarily, not as a clear rejection, but as something more ambiguous, more loaded, more difficult to interpret. I need space. 3 words, 3 completely different possible meanings, and most men respond the same way, by closing the gap, by reaching toward her, by doing exactly the thing that in almost every case makes it worse. Episode 7 decodes the 3 distinct meanings of female withdrawal. It explains what happens neurologically, in her brain and in yours, when she creates distance. It gives you the counterintuitive response that, in the right circumstances, recalibrates the entire dynamic in your favor. And it explains the single most important truth about the man who can truly let go. He is the man she cannot forget. This is Silent Genius. The curriculum continues.